Welcome to this evening's edition of the Evening Review. My name is Jemima Biekus, your host. Now, the youth inclusion has been a very topical issue in political parties, especially in the ruling party, Swapo. Now, today we are speaking to one of the parties, the Swapo Party Youth League members. He is the Secretary for Labour and Justice of the Swapo Youth League. Willem Amutenya, who has vigorously pushed for the youth to have a seat at the main table of the ruling party. He talks to us about youth inclusion and the lack of, and what the impact is of this lack of inclusion. Thank you for joining us, Willem.
Thank you, Jemima, for having me. And I'm happy that you are on this platform today.
It's absolutely a pleasure. Now, let's just jump right into it. There's been increasing calls for more deliberate inclusion of the youth at the top structures of the Swapo Party. How, in your view, does the exclusion of youth in the decision-making bodies of the party and obviously the top structures like the Central Committee and the Politburo affects policy making?
Okay, I think, Jemima, I must first start with the fact that I think I need to set the grounds clear that when we are talking about youth in the Swapo Party and therefore also in Namibia, we are talking about a person between the age of 18 and 35. That is a youth. Now, when we have um, people of this age group between the age of 18 and 35, which obviously we all know also that forms the biggest part of our population, that is the youth. We should also then understand that these are the group of people that obviously have so much challenges as we speak. And when we talk about policy formulation or policy establishment, we are looking at getting solutions that solutions to the problems and challenges that people are experiencing. Therefore, now we are saying the large number of people that makes up a population and therefore even more specially affected by so many challenges are not part of the policy making bodies or platforms. That obviously has a huge impact in a sense that we have people that are going through and experiencing the problems, but they do not have that platform to give the actual practical solutions to their problems. At a certain point, these policy formulations or the policies that are tend to be formulated happens not to be so much inclusive because the people that are affected by those challenges that feels these challenges each and every day on an everyday basis are not part of the process. They do not have um, their issues, their real experience that they go through on a daily basis are not presented because they are not felt by a group that is more of a representation as we speak by now. Therefore, when we do not have them included, obviously, the solutions that we happen to get, meaning the policies that we happen to get, aren't so much representative of the actual problems that our people are experiencing.
Can you elaborate on the actual problems that youth? I mean, obviously we know that youth are. We have a serious problem with youth unemployment, but what, in your view, uh, as a grassroots level leader, are the issues that youth grapple with?
Good. There's an issue of economic inclusion. Uh, our young people do not have the ability to acquire the basics of our economy. For instance, how is a young person in this country able to access loans in order for them to do their businesses? They're excluded completely because, yes, the policies are there. We have packages in the banks, development bank, agri-bank, and all these financial institutions, but the policies around these financial packages, young people cannot even afford them. You find those clauses or those portions to say no, a person must be able to have a cash flow, the person must have received this amount of money. That's why a young person should provide a bank statement. But we are talking about a young person that have never gotten any employment. So these are the serious issues that our young people are going through. They cannot even the issue of unemployment that we are talking about, Jemima. We are saying our young people have never even, there are young people that have graduated and never been employed to date. And therefore, the aspects around unemployment needs policy formulation where young people who has gone through and experienced such challenges should be part of. Okay, there's an issue of because I've spoken about unemployment, I've spoken about economic inclusivity to say that our young people must be able to access. We are also then talking about our young people being able to also get involved in the actual on the grassroots. Because remember, when I talk about on the grassroots, our young people are not even able to access funding for school, university funding. We have young people that are struggling to even access NASA funds. There are students that are not even able to continue their university because obviously they are not able to qualify for the NAFSA and all other academic financial institutions. So these are the whole challenges that our young people are going through that I think we need to consider having them included in decision making.
Speaking about decision making and policy making in particular, you attended the ruling party's just concluded policy conference a week ago, and you spoke a lot about youth inclusion. What was the feeling from the elders about how you presented this issue of youth inclusion, and also what do you think of the policies that have been drafted? I mean, we've seen a number of think tank policy documents. What do you think of that when it comes to youth inclusion and these issues that you've just highlighted? Do you think it addressed those issues effectively?
Yeah, no, Jemima, I must really acknowledge the fact that we came out excited as young people in the policy conference, that our leadership of the Swapo Party, to be specific, our president of Swapo, His Excellency Dr. Hage Geingob, really gave us an ear as the young people. Our elders really listened to the challenges that the youth are experiencing and also concurred with the fact that youth are not so much included in the decision making. And also, obviously, we are talking about the policy formulation by structure of our constitution. I must highlight that because this is by structure of our constitution. It's not to say that they wouldn't want to have young people there, but I think it's the issue of the structure of the constitution. That is something that we can discuss as time goes. But the bottom line is the fact that our senior leaders who were present, they really gave us an opportunity to express ourselves. Many young people had an opportunity to give their views and to propose solutions to ensure that issues of young people are obviously taken care of in our Swapo party structures across. Okay, we have spoken about so many aspects as you are indicating. Number one, it's obviously looking at the fact that our constitution does not include much of our young people, that we are looking forward to it to be amended so that it really look at the quota representation of young people in decision making. For instance, Central Committee, or we are also talking about when we go to the National Assembly, the election and the Electoral College, we have very, very few young people participating in these platforms. Therefore, these are some of the issues that the policy conference also considered to say we need to align our constitution the same way and policy as well, the same way we have done with the zebra style. You've seen Swapo Party have a zebra style, and I think we paid so much attention to that and leaving out the youth quota, as we are indicating. So we also looked at issues of how young people can also participate in economic development, as getting access to loans facilities, where, because they do not have, a young person as me might not even have collateral. A young person that is just graduating from the University of Namibia, an agricultural student, a student might not even have access to fund, does not have money to, or any property that can be used as collateral. How best can we incorporate such a young person in order for the person to benefit, or have his agricultural project being funded? Other issues that we spoke about there, it's on how best we need to accelerate the establishment of industrial projects, or coming up with industrial projects and investment projects that we are currently talking about today. We have the hydrogen and the issue of ammonia establishment and so forth. How best can we accelerate these projects that should allow young people to not only create employment, but obviously to most of them also to get employed there, and for other for instance, agriculturalists or those expertise in those areas to be able to take part not only as employees, but obviously taking part as investors, owning these industries for them to obviously be able to grow economically, and be able also to participate in the economy of this country. So those are quite a lot of policies, short-term and long-term policies that were formulated on industrial development, getting more investors in the country, but not only investors who are coming here to take out our money, but obviously also pass on the skills to the young people in order for them to carry on the economy on themselves, or as a society on its own. So those are most of the policies that we really went, or that we have passed there, that we are looking forward to the Congress to resolve. And I believe they are going obviously to be approved and form part of our governmental projects, if not the plan, in the upcoming years.
Now, before we go for a break, I just want to go back to you are saying that of the policies, some of the policies are looking at creating opportunities in the local industries for Namibian youth, and obviously to make sure that they are employed. Now, one of our biggest challenges in this country is the skills transfer. We've seen it in the Chinese construction industry, and we've seen it even in academia, where skills are not transferred. And has there been any proposition on how to make sure and how to compel these expatriates that come into the country to make sure that they transfer their skills to local Namibians, to make sure that these people are empowered?
Look, Jemima, our policies are very clear. I must say that our policies are very, very clear in terms of. I'm lucky that I've worked at the Ministry of Home Affairs and Immigration, where the work permits and employment permits, visas are issued, and they are specific and very strict when it comes to conditions of skills, transmitting of skills to our local people. And that we already have in place to say that when we have investors that are coming here, the first thing before we give these people, before they are issued with work permits or work visas, they must obviously, when we are saying one person is coming in with this expertise that we do not have, there must already be a plan of skills transferring to our local people. When a company is set here, for instance, in supplying or setting up of electrical solar panels, for instance, okay, in case if we do not have an expertise in such an industry, this is just an example, we simply just need one person that must come in within a short period of time, who should then be able to have been attached or assigned with a certain number of local Namibians, we are looking at preferably our young people, that should obviously be assigned to this individual for skill transfer. And therefore, these issues, Jemima, we already have them in place. The only thing that we probably need to think about and probably need to be strict on is on how to ensure that this happens. And it's our own Namibians that tend obviously to not to be much strict on this issue. Young people being assigned to that, but you do not pay much attention on getting these skills until the investor is gone. The investor keeps coming again, and then the investor is gone without proper transferring of this knowledge and skills to the young people. So, what I'm trying to say here is that we already have that in place. A person cannot come here as an expertise for a number of 5 years or a number of 10 years. The person comes here within a specific period of time, transfer the skills and knowledge, the person goes, and we should be able to sustain ourselves with that skill.
Okay, now let's go for a quick break. Welcome back. Now, if you have just joined us, we are speaking to Willem Amutenya, who is the Secretary for Labour and Justice in the Swapo Party Youth League. He's talking to us about the lack of youth in the top leadership of the ruling party and what this means for youth empowerment. Willem, before we went for a break, you said when the Swapo Party held its policy conference a week ago, you've been delighted with the fact that President Hage Geingob has given the youth an ear and that he has listened to your complaints. Now, and you've also said, obviously, and pointed out that the lack of youth in the top structures of the party is not a deliberate initiative by the party, and rather almost an oversight. Why do you think, how did this vacuum occur, this lack of leadership in the top structures of the party?
Yes, Jemima, as I've indicated, it's obviously it's the structure of the constitution and the structure of the policy. For instance, the number of delegates that the Swapo Party Youth League sent to the Congress, it's very minimum, 16. The Youth League sent 16 delegates to the Congress. And it's in the Congress where members of the Central Committee are elected. Now, when you look at that representation, even if you are to send your youth to represent you or as candidates to the Central Committee, the issue of generational interest would obviously take a lead. That's why you find it so difficult to have very, very few young people that you would find in the Central Committee. We don't even have a young person. When I talk about a young person, Jemima, I want to take you back, is between the age of 18 and 35. The only person that we had within that age range is just our secretary of the Youth League, who goes there by virtue of his position. We do not even have any young person in the Politburo, because at the end of the day, members of the Central Committee are the ones that elect members of the Politburo. So what I'm saying is it's on the structure, the current structure of our policies and the constitution automatically makes it so difficult for a young person within that age limit to get elected to those positions. It's not a deliberate issue. It's not an issue that to say um, eh, one would love the young people to be excluded. It's our structural documents that are guiding us. It's the same thing, Jemima, or the National Assembly election, the Electoral College that I've indicated. We send only 5 candidates to the Electoral College. 5 candidates, but you already know also the number of delegates that goes to that college, very, very much minimum. So even if you have your candidates there, but then your delegation to push and make sure that it puts that young person to have our representation well in place, at a certain point it becomes so much difficult. So it's not an omission to say it's the will, and that is it's not this it's not a, it's I wouldn't want to say it's designed to exclude the young people, but I think the constitution was just not correctly looked at to ensure an inclusion of the young people. Eh, that is why you can look at how we have so much now women representation, proper women representation, after the leadership introduced the zebra style, to the point that when we are sending 3 women, we must also send 3 men, or 4, 5, 10, 10 male, 10 females. So that is the same concept, I think, that would also work for the young people to say we should also just align a certain quota, that if we are sending the candidates to go to the to go to the electoral college, if we are talking about um, a 30% quota, if not 40 to 50 quota of the young people. Come on, we make largest number of the population of this country. So that there's also a need then to have a large representation of young people in all our structures of the party, more especially when it comes to decision making.
Okay, Willem, according to you, it is the constitution that constrains youth from participating in the top structures or to get into the top structures of the party. Now, you've also earlier said that the president has given you his ear. However, there is no consensus on the amendment of the party constitution. So, can you share with me where exactly do you draw your confidence from that we would see a change this time around? Because remember, the issue of youth inclusion, in the lack of youth inclusion in the top structures of the party is not a new thing. It has been there for decades. I mean, we've seen people being expelled from the party for speaking out about these issues. So what exactly gives you the confidence that things will be different this time around?
We, Jemima, understand the fact that the policy conference it's a platform where the party comes together to deliberate on the policies before the Congress, so that we have enough time to digest and have analysis, deep analysis on the policy initiatives that we have before the Congress. Now, when we go to Congress, we already go there with polished policies and recommendations, which we have made. And one of our recommendations, from more especially from the youth cluster, when we had to cluster ourselves, one of it was to obviously propose an amendment to the constitution and to our policies in terms of the youth representation. It was one of our recommendation from the youth. We want to see how best the constitution can be amended, and also obviously have the test of youth inclusion. That one we have proposed for Congress to consider. And I'm very, very positive with the fact that the deliberation was done, and a discussion of that nature was obviously well digested by the conference. And therefore I don't think it's something that I should be concerned about to say it's it's going to be over looked, or it's going to be sidelined. But yes, it still need a deliberation at the Congress. At the end of the day, Congress, it's the highest decision making body where we expect a decision on that nature to be taken. But with the understanding that we have, Jemima must also inform you that the young people have been organizing themselves to ensure that we form up a representation, or as delegates to the Congress. And therefore, with a large number of young people to the Congress, that we had to get our own ways as the young people to make sure that we have also increased our numbers through different structures, not going there as the youth, but through other different structures. Then obviously we have that expectation that we would be, in a good number, to ensure that we have the youth inclusion aspect
Covered.
being discussed in the Congress, and the resolutions and amendments being passed to ensure that we have a youth quota and we have a large youth representation in these platforms.
Thank you very much for joining us this evening, Willem. Have a good night.
Thank you. Have a good night, gentlemen. Bye bye.
Thank you for tuning in. Good night.